Welcome, everyone. I'm so happy to be here with a friend and colleague, Shana James, and we are talking about something I think you'll be very interested in, how to be met by a man or person while dating or in a long-term relationship. And Shana's talking about this as a very well experienced relationship and dating coach. She has an MA and she's the author of a book called Honest Sex: How to Deepen Connection and Keep Relationships Alive. And she shares how to inspire more depth, emotional presence, and true co-creation without shrinking and second guessing or doing all the work. So she wants to support you to be who you truly are, your full self, and even enjoy the process of inviting someone to meet you exactly where you are. So welcome, Shana. I'm super happy and honored to have you here with me.
Thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely. So I've got some juicy questions for you. And the first
Great.
one is, what does it look and feel like to be met by a man or a partner? What does that look and feel like? And when you say,
Yeah. My sense of being met, and I know, you feel free to add if you want to, but my sense of being met is a way of feeling understood. A lot of women talk about trying to be, or that when they're in partnerships, often with men, but it could be a person of any gender, that trying to fix them or they don't really hear or understand what they're going through. So I think that piece, feels like being met. I think relationships these days are just so much beyond. It used to be like, oh, that person plays tennis. Let me set you up with that person because you both play tennis. And now it's like on these deeper levels, do we have similar values or, similar enough that we feel really connected? Do we want to impact the world in the same ways? Do we have the same mission and purpose? And so the sense of being met, there's emotionally, energetically, physically, sexually, spiritually. So I really like to support women to be met in all the ways that they want to be, right? Some of those may be less important for each individual. I think we're all different. But I also like to say that you can be met on all of these different levels.
yes. Yes, one would hope so. And that's what I'm up to as well and have
Yeah.
experienced it myself. So it's
Yes.
possible. I can
Yes.
speak to
Yes.
that. Yes. And then how do women know when they're not being met? What are some of the signs of that?
I think when you feel disappointed a lot, resentful, bitter, dull, um, right? When you're with your partner and you feel more alone than you actually feel when you're by yourself, or more lonely, I guess I should say. Right?
Mhm.
If you don't have that sense of somebody has my back, and if you don't have that sense of when we're in the bedroom together, this person actually knows my body. This person knows what gives me pleasure, what has me feel nourished, what has me feel safe, what has me feel connected. If you're not feeling those things, those are signs that you're not being met.
Mhm. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So true. I love what you're speaking to around the body and your sexual needs, and also this piece around loneliness. Yeah, because many couples
Yeah.
for a long time just don't feel that connected, like they drift
Right.
apart emotionally or in other
Yeah.
ways in their interests, and yeah, they're not getting met in these ways.
Yeah. And I
Sad.
think
Yeah.
sex is a concrete way to see that in action, right? Because oftentimes, if we're not being met emotionally, it's a little more almost invisible or harder to
Yeah.
track and say what's really going on. And then oftentimes people come in saying, oh, this isn't working in the bedroom, or we're not feeling the spark anymore,
Yeah.
and then we can trace it back to, all right, what's happening emotionally? Or are you communicating? Are you listening to each other? Are you feeling understood?
Yeah. Yeah. I love that.
Yeah.
I'm thinking of a client now. Do you ever find that it can be the opposite where somebody is, I'm thinking of a client who's in a fairly long 10 to 15-year relationship and
Mhm.
they don't have a sexual life, mostly because of him, but they have a great connection in all these other ways.
Yes.
You find that too?
I do. And then again, I mean, some people are happy with that, and that's great. I think oftentimes when they come to me, they are wanting more and trying to figure out how do I make that happen, and
Yeah.
not throwing out the baby with the bathwater, right? It's not like, oh, let me try and just get a new relationship here where there's going to be spark, because there's acknowledgement that the trust and the safety and the connection built over all of these years is precious.
Yeah. Yeah, it is. And it's so important to get that kind of support too. I mean, when you have a relationship that's working on so many levels and there's some pieces that aren't working, it's like, it's a good sign to say, I need help and who can
Yes.
help with this and
Yeah.
really get the support you need and not be okay with not enough or just
Yes, I love that. I love that. And I think, we often don't recognize our blind spots. So
hmm
there may be ways I often find with women, especially, that there are ways that we can complain or we can nag or we can,
hmm
get a little bit huffy or bitter
hmm
and think that we're going to get more of what we want that way.
Yeah.
And yeah,
Trolling. Yep. Yep.
yeah,
Criticizing. Yeah, totally.
exactly. And so no blame, no shame. There's nothing wrong with you, right? If this is your way of being, but just recognizing, oh, there are tools and there are ways to communicate and things I know you teach as well that make it so much easier to have those missing pieces that you're looking for.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And to get met.
Yes,
Yes.
exactly.
Yes, yes. Okay, I'm moving on to, I have another question for you, is that
Okay.
what are some of the most common ways that women unintentionally block themselves from
Mm.
being met, even those who've done a lot of personal growth?
Well, what we were just talking about, I definitely see that. Even many women who've done a lot of personal growth, there can be a way where it's like, I'm at my wit's end. I am just exhausted, or I've asked too many times. That was one of the traps I fell into in my marriage, which it's been a long time since I was married. I was divorced about 12 years ago. And
Mm,
at the end, I realized that I was complaining, or I had this story like I've asked enough times and it's not happening. So now I have a
mm,
right to complain. I
mhm.
think that is one of the traps that we fall into, where it's like it's not gonna work, we tend to, if we're closing our hearts and trying to get what we want or need, then usually we're just putting up a wall and pushing someone farther away. So
Yeah,
there's that end. On the other side, I would say there's a lot of, like you said, just giving up and settling and thinking, this is pretty awesome for what it is, or this person is a great partner or a great provider, or I shouldn't
mhm.
rock the boat, I shouldn't want more. And sometimes there are situations too where it's like, I don't know what I would do financially if this relationship ended, or, right, there are
Yeah,
real survival issues. Yeah. So,
absolutely. Yeah.
um, yeah, there's so many different ways that I think that we can settle and
Mm,
think, I don't deserve more, or I guess this is my, I think one of mine too was like, I guess this is all I get. It's not
mhm.
okay to ask for more.
Yeah, yeah. And something that you said, I wanted to say, it's too hard. It's
Mm.
too hard to get everything I want. It's going to
Yeah.
cause too much upheaval or disruption in my life. Um, and
Yeah.
the
And there
reason,
is a risk, right? It's
uh,
a risk if we do ask for what we want. It's vulnerable, first of all, because we may not get it. And then we
mm,
have to feel that lack instead of feeling the defense against the lack.
mm,
Um, And I think there's a risk. Like if I ask and I rock the boat, are we going to find that we're not compatible or that this doesn't work?
yeah,
And for those who really want to grow and evolve in love, and it's a spiritual practice for you, or you see it as something spiritual, I think um, we need to take those risks.
yeah,
And for someone else, it might be more like, what, this partnership is enough as it is, and it's structurally sound, and we're raising children, and this is what we're doing here. And right, I
mhm,
don't want to take that risk.
mhm,
But for those who do want to, I think there's, incredible tenderness and vulnerability that creates safety and support often, Though, I haven't acknowledged, right? If you have a partner who it doesn't feel safe to communicate with, or you ask and you really feel like there's abusive tendencies or you're not getting your needs met in any way and someone's not willing to see you, right?
Yeah.
I can say you may not want to take this risk.
Yeah. 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 I have some clients later in life, late 60s or even mid 70s
Yeah.
who feel like it's just too much to end that and start over. And there's so many risks involved. So
Yeah.
yeah.
And
Yeah.
in that case, right, you can create an amazing life for yourself and you can accept versus, rather than being bitter about this is the way it is, it's like, okay, how do I create beauty and magic and connection in all the relationships in my life instead of just thinking this is the only way to get it?
Yeah. How do we get our needs met given the choices we're making and
Yeah.
the limits we're putting on ourselves?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, we have women here who are not in a relationship too. So I'm going to ask you a question about that. So for single women, how can they attract a conscious man without falling into old patterns or overgiving or self-silencing?
Yeah. So I've coached a lot of men over the past couple decades, and it's fascinating to me because a lot of those men who are, I would call conscious men, are not finding that they're being met by women and that, women sometimes are seeing them as a means to an end, either to have a family or to be a provider. Um, and that oftentimes I hear this on both sides that, someone on a date, it just talks and talks and talks and doesn't ask questions or doesn't get curious or doesn't go to these deeper levels, right, of really listening and hearing each other and getting curious about each other. So, one piece for a woman who's dating is, show up in to a date and have a conscious conversation instead of trying to be someone you think that person wants you to be, right? How do you actually stay in touch with who you are to the depth of your heart and soul and enjoy yourself and, show up with your light and your play and your vulnerability and the whole range of yourself. And then
Hmm.
I would say, as you're looking for love, one of the things that I would do as I was online dating, I met my partner who we've been together for about 3 years now online. And
Mhm.
as I was looking, I really did a sort of body soul check, right? Like, first of all, I was looking for language that
Mhm.
implied consciousness or was very clear about consciousness, whether it was meditation or mindfulness or talking about yoga or classes that they've done. Like, I really, that to me is important. So I wanted to make sure that they had that consciousness. And then I would really feel into sort of the field of people and see like what's my sense of this person? What's the read I'm getting on them? And I can say that if I've had a bad date, there are very few. And I've dated in pretty much every decade of my life now, from my teens, 20s, 30s, right? I've covered them all because of getting divorced.
Mhm.
Um, and I really have had so much joy on my dates. And, even if it wasn't the one, I learned many things. I got, you know, like turned on to different, whether it's a restaurant or a place to travel or a spiritual practice, like really enjoyable. And I was respected on the
Mhm.
dates. And so I really support women to bring their consciousness in the process of trying to find a man, not just settle or not just look for the surface layer of is he hot and is he making money?
Yeah. Yeah. I love that. I love these pieces um, of of fielding through not only the language, which is, can say a lot, but also your just felt sense in your
Yeah.
body. And then also this point of like, how can you have fun, on the date and still make the best of it, even if it's not your person,
Yeah.
like to really make it a good time and what can I learn and just be open to the whatever's possible there. So thanks for that.
Yeah. Yeah. It's like there's like I don't know. It's like a gift from the universe that comes in. It's like, oh, what do I want to do with this? Maybe I am going to pass it on to someone else. Maybe I'm regifting something,
Right.
but I can still, I don't know, right? I can still kind of enjoy the process. My sister always used to say it's either a great date or a great story,
Uh-huh.
which I thought was a fun way to say it. And then as I grew up, it was more like, oh, it's either a great date or it's a doorway into something.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Because we're filtering, right? And so you can learn more about what you don't want and then be more
Yes.
clear next time or change your profile a little bit.
Totally. Agreed. Agreed.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that goes with friends too. I'm in a new country relatively. We've been here 3.5 years now, but still making friends, still
Yeah.
finding like who's my people. And so yeah, it's a process of learning and filtering.
Yeah.
Yep. Okay, more questions for you.
Okay.
So let's go to women who are in long-term relationships now, and what can they do if their partner seems emotionally shut down or unwilling to meet them in the ways they long for?
Mm,
Talk about that a little bit.
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, first of all, I think, again, like I was saying before, it's easier to defend than it is to open your heart.
Mhm.
And I often believe, that communication and asking for what we want is a foundation of being able to have it. And
Yep.
so you agree?
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah. And so I often support women who aren't getting what they want to be able to have those conversations and to really look inside and see, well, what would keep me from just saying what I want and need? Because most of the time women come to me and they're like, I don't know how to say it. I don't know this, that, and I'm like, okay, well, what would you say if you were just here, right here, right now? You're not saying it to your partner, just,
Mhm.
you can't get it wrong. And they use these words that are, I would say, perfect, not because they're like the right words, but just it's like, that's a beautiful expression of what you want and need. Now, what would keep you from saying that? And then it's like, oh, I'm going to rock the boat, or maybe I don't deserve this, or right. Then it goes into all those deeper. I know you work with this too, the unconscious beliefs and places where we're holding our wounds and the ways that we relate to the world from being young.
Mhm.
So yeah,
Absolutely.
it's a beautiful, deep process.
Yeah, such important work. We spent a whole month on that in my program because it's true. Women, especially, are often afraid to ask for what they want. They're afraid of being too assertive or being judged or being rejected. I think
Yeah.
everyone got those fears of rejection. So it's such important work to kind of, yeah, put a lens on that and focus in on what those fears are. And
Hmm.
then
Hmm.
this question, what's keeping you from doing that you've asked? Yeah, to really unpack that because it's in the way. It's in the way of having your needs met, like you're saying, and
Yeah.
getting what you want. Um, and this question was if a partner seems emotionally shut down,
Yeah.
anything you want to add about that
Yeah.
that
I think if a partner seems emotionally shut down, right, that there can be a tendency to meet that shutdown with our own shutdown.
Mhm.
And I often, again, as long as there's no abuse happening and you have a relative sense of trust in this person,
Yeah.
um, I would really suggest coming with the vulnerability of,
Okay.
hey, I'm struggling here. There's something that I'm having a hard time with, and I'm wondering if we could talk about this. Or I'm wondering if you'd be on board for looking at this together. So
Yeah.
sometimes the shift is from being on different teams to being on the same team. Like, okay, if I'm coming from the same team, we're going to want to do this together. And I don't want to say it's an assumption, but there is a kind of, acting as though, right? Acting as though we are on the same team, even if it feels like we're on a different team.
Right. We do have a commitment on some level. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, I love that. And I'm so aligned with the vulnerability piece. Like if you truly are in an intimate relationship and you're not being vulnerable, you're missing out on
Yeah.
real connection. And,
Yes.
and
Agreed.
it takes that opening up or that tapping into some deeper truth sometimes to get to what else is important, what else is needed.
Yeah.
So I appreciate, yeah, you're leading with that.
Yeah.
All right, I'm going to move on to another question for you. Oh yeah, you already mentioned you've been a coach to men for like 20 years.
Yeah.
And what have you learned about what men need in order to meet a woman deeply?
Mm. I've learned that men, um, they also want to be understood,
Mhm.
and that there's a particular kind of safety that they need. It's not permission to be vulnerable, but there's a kind of safety that comes when we, as a partner, are willing to say, "Oh, that makes sense," or "Oh, like I have compassion for what you're going through," rather than suck it up, don't be a wuss. Um, I think another like less commonly seen one is when we as women get afraid that if a man opens up and shows some vulnerability, that means that's how he's going to be forever. That
Mm,
he's not going to then regain his seat in his own strength and power and sovereignty. And oftentimes when I'm working with men, I see that the very access point to more strength and sovereignty is actually through their vulnerability.
mm,
Um,
yes.
and, there are ways that we as women can learn to hold vulnerability and have those conversations without feeling like now I have to caretake, now I have to be the mommy, and ways that men can learn. And I do this work with men so that they can step into this sense of their innate goodness, right? Like I am good, I am
Mm,
strong, there's nothing wrong with me, and I'm having emotions. I can express them. I'm not asking you to take them for me or save me or fix me. I'm
mhm,
actually, just I want to be in this together with you so that I'm not alone. I think men want, a lot of women have this story like all men want is sex.
mhm,
Oftentimes what I'm seeing is that is because it's a way a man feels like he has permission to be connected and to be vulnerable and to be tender and emotional. Men
mhm,
aren't often taught that they can do that in any other way. So when you see that and you start to invite these other kinds of tenderness and intimacy and connection, men often feel then more safe, to bring that to you.
mm. Yes to that. I love that. Yeah, totally. Makes sense. And yeah, I found myself taking some deep breaths as you were talking and feeling this kind of sadness about, how men are raised in our culture. Like you
Yeah.
have to be tough
Yeah.
and like I said, suck it up and don't be weak
Yeah.
and all this stuff. So it takes, like you were saying, like a really safe space for them to be okay with,
Yeah.
like, it's not weak to have tears, it's not weak
Right.
to be scared, it's just part of being human,
Yeah.
but
And unfortunately, we weren't shown a lot of male vulnerability. So
yes.
sometimes when it happens, it's like, whoa, I don't know what to do with this. And so when
Yeah,
I'm working with
that's
couples, there's often a
mm,
little bit of teaching of, okay, how do I hold this and how do I navigate my own fears about this
mm,
rather than just shutting it down out there.
right. Yeah, thanks for that. I think that's so key.
Yeah.
Yep, that feels really important. All right. Ooh, some good stuff. Okay, how can women bring up these deeper needs or desires? I think we've talked about this without scaring their partner off
Yeah.
or feeling like they're too much.
Well,
Mm,
the thought that just came up when you read that was letting go of demands, right?
mm,
That we can ask for something and we can stay open to creating a win-win with someone. So if we're asking and we are only open to it's my way, I don't want it any other way, no differences, then that's actually more of a demand. But if we
mm,
can ask and say, hey, this is something I'm really interested in, or this is something that matters to me, I also want to know what are you interested in? What matters to you? How can we co-create something that actually feels great to both of us? That can be really helpful.
mm. Yeah, love that. Co-creation. I often use the word collaborate, which is same thing,
Yes,
it's we're in it
exactly.
together, like you've been saying. Yeah, that
Yeah.
makes a lot of sense. And I think everyone wants to be included, and no one wants to be told what to do or what they should do, or that they're not doing it right. And so we have to remember that
Yeah.
it's the same for us too. We don't always want to be told we have to fix it, or, something wrong with us, or we're doing,
Yes. Yes.
let me do it for you because you can't do it yourself type of thing. Sometimes people want that, however, okay. Let's move on to this last question I have for you is, if someone is listening here today and feels stuck in a cycle of disconnection or resentment, what's the first conversation they could have to start to shift that dynamic?
Mm. I often suggest that the first conversation is really an acknowledgement, right?
Mm,
An acknowledgement of, I don't want to be feeling this way, but I am.
yeah.
And I'm not blaming you. I'm not making it that you're doing something wrong. Like setting the context in conversations, I often find is game changing for people,
Mhm.
where if you know your partner already has a fear or already has a story that you're making them wrong or you're demanding or all of this, right? That you can
Mhm.
actually address that by saying, hey, I want to have a conversation with you and it feels vulnerable and I don't want to make a demand or I don't want whatever the pattern is. What I do want is to really look at this together and to be, again, to be on the same team and to
Yeah.
explore what's possible here because, right, the acknowledgement might be neither one of us seems very happy, or it seems like these parts of our relationship are going really well. We can keep on going how we have been, and these parts of our relationship seem like we're struggling. And
Mhm.
does that matter to us? What do we want to do, right? This curious
Mm.
collaboration, like you said, of
Mhm.
what do we really want and need? And, I've got my side. And again, also, I want to hear yours.
Mhm. Love that. Yes, more collaboration, co-creation, like you said. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's a great takeaway from our conversation, I think,
Mm, yeah.
is not, it's like I matter more or what I need has to happen, but just this, like you've been saying, this curiosity, this, how can we both get our needs met? What do we want
Yeah.
of that?
Yeah. And I don't know if I heard this word recently, like soft power. I don't know if that actually makes sense, but right, there's a way that I think we as women can feel like, well, if I'm not standing up for myself in a strong way, then I'm losing my power. And I think the reality that I've seen is we can be
Mm,
incredibly powerful and it doesn't have to be loud and it doesn't have to be demanding and it actually
yeah.
can be incredibly loving and we can honor ourselves by being
Mm,
clear and
yeah.
by holding loving boundaries and by being curious and compassionate, right? All of those are a kind of power.
Yes, agreed. Yeah. Well, Shana, it's so good to talk with you in this deeper way. And I'm sure people are writing down notes and getting a lot from our conversation. So thanks for making some time. And
Yeah, thank you for having
yeah,
me.
absolutely.
And I know like, this is your area of expertise too, so thank you for supporting women in this because it's
Yeah,
just not easy. It's not easy to do on our own.
absolutely. I know we're all learning as we go. And so, yeah, appreciate sharing this space with you. And yeah, if people want to get in touch with you or learn more about how they can connect with you, um,
Yeah, we
you
can put
have,
the links. I think I'll put them under your post, but I have a quiz
yeah,
that looks at what are the blocks to having the best love and sex of your life, especially after 40, but it really fits for any age.
great.
And then if you want a copy of my book, Honest Sex, I have a free virtual copy. So we can put a link to that as well.
That is wonderful. Well, that's very generous of you. Thank you so much. So yes, check below whether on YouTube or Facebook or wherever you're seeing this, and click on those links to download some juicy tidbits from Shana.
Yeah.
Thanks
Thank
so
you for
much.
having me.
You're welcome. Hope to see you soon.